All right, so we've been playing with our little remote control forklift, and it's been doing a perfect job for us. I've already got the crawl space pretty much loaded. Um, and I was able to get pallets on both sides. I have just enough room. I have like, I think 5.5 feet. It's 7.5, yeah, 5.5 feet in the middle. And that's how much room I need to maneuver this thing to enter a pallet, and spin around. And it's not tight, but it's not the easiest thing in the room. You can see I have some pretty good control. Like I was able to get those two end pallets, using the FPV camera, and I was able to get like right to the edge. I mean, for the pallet to sit in that much, which is probably about 3 inches, my tire is like really, really close to the edge, and I don't want it to fall off the edge because that means I'm crawling. Um, so I've decided I'm going to extend the warehouse, keep going, extend it into that extra space. Now, if I want to be able to include two pallets in that kind of restricted area there, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. Not going to be able to do it because that width is the same as, where these pallets come out. So really that would be a one side only area. And I don't have the option of like double stacking pallets like too deep here or anything. So, I made a couple small changes. I'd moved my FPV camera up there for two reasons. One, when it's mounted on the ram, when you're going up and down, you have no visual indication of how high anything is, or even that the movement occurred because the camera is moving with the ram. So you lose that bit of feedback of, seeing one thing moving relative to a static position. The other part is, once you get a box on there, you can't see if they got anything. So you can't use it for any kind of navigation. Up here, we still have a chance to use it a little bit for navigation. We can still read the forks, and that I can see the progress of the box coming up and down or whatever when I have a static reference point. I can tilt the mast to see like farther in, but it still might be worth putting a little servo on here to control, and I do have the open channel. Aiming this right at the tips of the forks, like I nailed it. I got perfect placement on the light, but it's a little bit harsh. It's a pretty bright light, and it kind of drones out the camera a bit. So first I'll try rotating it out a bit so it's not as intense. And maybe if that isn't enough, that I'll, just try to aim it flat so that it's not as harsh and it doesn't wash out the camera as much. So now we're getting to a couple more things. If I want to, double stack pallets or be able to do two in that section or just have easier handling, like it doesn't have to be this long. Obviously the longer that it is, the more leverage you have against the payload in the front. So you need less weight, right? So that's kind of cool. And that's why I wasn't so opposed to including a big ballast box. But, so I don't necessarily need two batteries. I really don't. It was running just fine on one, and it's a 12-volt system. So I don't need two batteries. So if I turn the battery this way, and so here's the beginning of my battery tray. So one battery will take me 5 inches. And then I can collapse all of this back here so that my frame ends right here. And basically what I would do is I'd remove the ballast box. I would move the caster. The caster pivot would be about, let's see, if it's going to end here, the caster pivot would be about here. We'd have 2 inches on the outside. And then I'll show you what I'd use for ballast in a second. So on eBay, I picked up 60 pounds of these lead weights. I have a stack about this high of them. And they already got this great bevel cut on them. And so if I were to saw these in half, then what I could do is on each side, I could have the caster pivot about here. And then the caster would be free to pivot, right within kind of the ballast, to the weight of the ballast almost. So, and I'd have a little bit more weight. I think it'd be about even so that I'm not really losing, even though I'm closer in, I'll have 60 pounds instead of 34 plus, so basically 50 because I'm losing the battery as well. but we're going to be closer to the pivot point. I think I'll probably still be quite close to the 50-pound load capacity. And I could always make something that kind of hangs over the back. Like if I was going to lift something extra heavy, a little bit more ballast that I just slip on like a suitcase weight for tractors. So I'd have to really profit from, if I'm going to saw my frame in half and start re-welding everything and just, going Edward Scissorhands on it, I have to know that I really need that or want that. So I don't know if that's going to happen yet. We'll see. Another thing that I think I am going to try because it's easy is, originally we were designing this to be 4-wheel drag over rough terrain, right? So we included like some pretty good clearance. Like we have, I think it's like 2 3/4, I believe the number is. It is, 2 3/4 clears with a 10-inch plier. Now, because we have this nice smooth surface now, this surface was a win. This was a smart thing to do. And having a single swivel caster back there, that was another smart thing to do. There was no scenario where I was going to be able to run this without raking out the ground and making it smooth. So that at least had to be done. And I didn't want to have to fight with soft spots like randomly or, if you can't control that. This is a nice controlled surface. It lets it run nice and smooth. So now we have some, now we're outside of our original design parameters though, and there might be some more things that we can optimize. We don't need this kind of ground clearance, and we don't need a 10-inch tire. So the bigger the tire, the harder it is for that motor to spin it, right? And we're already a little bit underpowered on the motors. Well, we could benefit from more power anyway. They're doing the job fine. So I went to Harbor Freight today, and I picked up. So Harbor Freight had a couple of these 8-inch nylon tube-filled air-filled pliers on sale. So I picked up a couple of these, and the whole pattern, and I compared it to the 10-inch ones that I had, and the whole pattern really looked like super close, right? And because I figured I'm going to try it, and I don't really want to have to modify my hubs. But maybe I need drill extra holes and modify these rims if I have to or whatever. So that's going to take up 2-inch diameter, 1 inch on the bottom. So now I'll have 1 3/4 clearance, which I think is still pretty good. I'd almost wanted to go with a 6-inch, but that I'd only have 3/4 inches of clearance. And I do have some things, the bottom of the actuator sticks down another 1/2 inch maybe. So that was just going to be too close to cut on a 6-inch tire, I think, for the way I could have adapted for that, but not at this point. So this will let the motors have a little bit more breather. It turns out the pattern is not the same. We are just a touch off, and the rims are also different thicknesses, if you can see, but luckily with a 2-killed tire, I could just put the old, because also we would have had to modify the rim and this one's welded all the way around as opposed to these ones, which just had a little curled lip. So modifying these wouldn't be fun. Have to do a lot of work, but luckily these old rims, the center hub is still the same width. And even though they clamped together and the tire didn't fill it, by the time you fill it with air, it expands out and is secure on the rim. So I'm going to try to put these on. I'm going to go take the other ones off and see how much of a difference 6-inch to higher. Now, the other ones also have more of a crown to them. Like these ones are almost flat. They're actually got a little crown now that I'm on the wider rim. So, turning might not be quite as easy as it was. Tread-wise, this is going to be fine because we're on the nice surface. These actually might even be a little bit better. Not that traction has been a problem. So we're going to switch those over. We're going to see how they go. Just playing with it. So we know we shouldn't use the linear actuator in retraction mode, but it just makes for a great tire change experience, right? And I blocked it anyway. But it gets it up there without me having to lift. Another nice side effect of the smaller tires is it's going to tone it down a little bit. So, these are 10-inch. So basically one full revolution is around, something like 30 inches. And the other one will be like something like 24. So we're going to be saving 6 inches per revolution of speed, which will be helpful. Also, as you can see, that is not something's not right there. And it's probably my plug weld I'm at set screw cowler. So I'm probably going to have to drill in from the other side and do another plug weld while it's in here in the crawl space. Oh well, is what it is. It's better than having a stripped Baker motor, right? Actually, I don't have 4 hands, but both of the plug welds failed. Plug weld down the shaft and the plug weld down the axle. So if I ever did have to remove these, I would just sawzall them right here and then, remove the 2 halves, and then I could just kind of grind them down. It would have been nicer if, on this side I don't really care about, but this side I think I might actually drill out the weld and replug it right there. So that way, if I ever have to do grind, I'm just grinding on a flat. Also, because I drilled these, straight through the axle in it by hand, it didn't, and they had already been pre-drilled once before. This hole was just, the bottom hole was just slightly off. So in order to compensate for that, I made some of these thick washers, and with the tire and everything right on there, I just reached right down in with a stick welder and just kind of gave them a little touch of weld, to give them a little bit of more meat to hold on to. So while those ones are still pretty good. So not my favorite thing to do is work like this. I'll have to put down some leather or something. Both of those. Damn. All right, so that drilled out quite easy, and I think I know why I didn't get a good shot in there. I think that output shaft is pretty hard. So when I drill down, the only part, because the drill bit comes at a cone, so really only this tiny little bit, I turned it left and right after I was done drilling the hole, and there was still a lot of the shaft metal. The tip did not penetrate this shaft hardly at all. So really, even when I welded it, even if I got a good solid weld all the way to the bottom, it would have had to go through a lot of this before it even started to bond to that, except for this tiny little pinprick. So this time around, I did something I probably shouldn't have, but it worked. Put a little end in my drill and just real careful and it peeled out that last bit. So I use a magnet and get all the chips out. And then I got to lug the welder down into the basement for a 2-second operation. So I've never tried to plug weld a deep hole with a stick welder, but 18 pounds. The other one is 80. Plus I have to undo the gas connections and lug the tank down, and I'm just going to get a shot with the full. Also, batteries removed, foam removed, fire extinguisher handy. Nuh-uh, you don't get to see what that looks like. Not what you want to be doing. But 6011 plunge down in. I think I got a good penetration. Not the prettiest thing. Also have the amps way cranked up. But, now we just have the play that's from the through hole into the thing. And we could drill that bigger, but I'll leave that for another time because I kind of want to take these off and repaint them if this works out well, because red, what? Oh, I just tried to turn it on and it didn't work. Don't worry. Right, let's go. We'll go full stick. These tires can slip a little bit on the wood. Stay with that, or so much will nettle. I should think those other ones did not do that. Still the smaller size, even if it's a little bit slower and more controllable, is helpful. And even if and a little bit more power that we get from those motors. it's still going to be helpful, even if we can't really discern what a smoke and mirror. So nothing like arc welding in the morning. All right, so I'll take any advantage I can get at this point. And if I take it out to do that chop, then I will definitely fix those shaft couplers properly. And at least I'll be able to get the maker motors out without too much of a fight, I don't think. And I don't know. That's what it is. I don't think that sliding of the nylon on the, we obviously don't get as much traction if those can just slide across the surface. It must be the difference between nylon and rubber. So I don't think there's really going to be a problem when traction is not really a problem. And now that bit of swinging and stuff, I don't know, it's like drifting. We're awesome. You know what? Those players slipping a little bit more on this could actually be pretty awesome because, if this thing gets stuck or something, or I have to manhandle it and pull it around, it breaks down or whatever, with the rubber tires, it just did. I mean, those tires would not, they had so much grip on the surface that it was a bear to pull this thing around, and it really felt like you were going to do damage to the motors with it going, trying to hop. So, even less. In this scenario, we have all the traction we need and no extra that could cause a problem. So I guess it's all right. Just hope those things take Pete. And back in the other video, way long ago, maybe part 6, when I welded the forks on, and I was like, oh, I forgot to make it so they could never really hit the ground, that I could just, rest. But I couldn't get a negative, like if I ever had to go down below. Well, now that I switched tires, I can go down below. So I kind of got my wish. All I can think of is Rob McDonald. All right, so I broke down Plute and all the way back. There were 10 hours of solid, straight labor. Ouch. Worth it, though. Where's base? That's how much stone we had to crawl out of there on our back. No phone. Wearing a respirator the whole time and a jumpsuit and all. So as I use this some more, a couple more thoughts, I ended up moving the light out to the side a little bit and moving the camera off to the side a little bit so that I can just barely catch the tip of that fork. The more fork you see, the less of anything else you see. And using that for navigation, especially once you get, on the side over there, you want to be able to see more, even when you have the box up, which, could be obscuring the camera a bit. So I might actually move the camera on top of the light, just to get even a little bit farther out so that I can, kind of see around the box as I'm driving. The other thing is that box right there, I didn't know if I'd be able to lift that. I mean, this is rated for 50 pounds, plus we have the weight of the carriage and the forks, right? So the bottom box is altogether that's 61 pounds, plus the pallet, plus the carriage. So we're probably talking almost 70. Then I figured I'd try it just to see if it would do it. It actually did it. It was okay with it. And even if you just get that part, snugged up, that other actuator is like a 225 pound actuator to do the tilt. So, we can actually lift things even heavier. Having more lift, because we're in such a confined space and space is all important. The speed of the actuator kind of doesn't matter, like we already have to drive really slow. So I might actually go back to the other 225 pound actuator, even though it's like 3 times slower than this one. This one was just more fun, but we're not entirely doing this for fun. So also these tires, they did seem to take a paint. Okay, for me, not great, obviously. I'm going to try another paint on there too, just to see. But these are like Man Mari. The other ones are actually nylon too, it turns out. But I like that these don't have like ultimate traction, that I can kind of pull the machine around and skid it. Also, like if I'm moving fast and I stop one motor and just keep this one to do a hard turn, like the other tire will skid a little bit. And that's actually kind of awesome because it's limiting how much forces are going into our drivetrain setup, like our axle and those couplings and stuff like that. Like the skid actually prevents too much torque from going into the rest of our drivetrain. So I prefer these tires over the other ones. I think that they'll be good for the longevity of, the couplings and the motors and everything else. And I might even try, these are 8-inch. I'm starting to get just a couple inches, and I think I might try to find a 6-inch tire and see what that can do for us. So far, I've only found those in kind of like that, hard plastic center, not with an actual bolt-in hub. So I'll look around and, maybe I'll try those just as an experiment. But, oh no, we are kicking butt. It's doing really good, and this has made a difference. Like, I have a last storage in here right now. That wall's lined up almost to the end at this point. Like, I probably got 3 more spaces. So, this is making a big difference in my storage space in the basement.